Hello and welcome to another Driven Catalyst live stream. It's my favorite day of the week, New Music Friday, and let me tell you, every single time that I'm struggling to find a new release or I'm feeling like, oh man, I'm gonna have to pull from artists I already know and find a release that came out maybe a couple weeks ago to talk about and listen to. Every time I say, no, I'm going to hunker down and I am going to do some Googling. I'm going to look around on Spotify. I'm going to figure out something new, something different to listen to. I am never disappointed. Last week, I listened to Ken Pomeroy's new album, kind of country was the vibe, called Cruel Joke. And this week I did some similar Google searches. I do poking around on a website called albumoftheyear.org. So shout out to them. I think this is maybe the second time I have consulted albumoftheyear.org to find what's out this week. And I kind of judge a book by its cover. I look for album art that I like. I look for names that are intriguing to me. And I dive in from there. I usually give like the first song on the album a quick listen, and if it's a vibe I like, I go for it. So that's how I found Sedona's Getting Into Heaven. It is an 11-song album, 32-minute runtime, and from Bandcamp, we already have a big story being made. We've got myth rock and hair salon pop listed as genres, and then a quick visit to the artist website. There are some more like similarly toned genre names that all feel like they fall into that Spotify wrapped bubblegum pop weird stringing of words together to create a vibe genre. And at first I was curious if maybe it was tongue-in-cheek. Sedona's Instagram bio is pageant rock, so it also fits into that kind of world. But I have to say, if you also take it as completely earnest and use the genres listed as genuine descriptors, I do feel like they're not totally inaccurate either. So in the description down below for this live stream, I've linked a 2018 article that is a really good interview kind of laying out the making of the Sedona project, Sedona as an artist and as a musical project, the team involved. So I linked that down below. And then as always, I have, when possible, I have the artist's Bandcamp down below. If you don't know, Bandcamp is a great resource for supporting small artists, big artists, all sorts of independent artists. You can buy albums digitally or order vinyls directly through them. I'm sure you know what Bandcamp is if you're watching me. Like, again, it's always this thing where I'm talking about things that I am excited about on YouTube Live, and I feel like if I'm telling you about something, like, I'm by no means an influencer in my mind. If you somehow have ended up watching this live stream, odds are you already know about everything else in the world, I guess, is kind of the assumption I make sometimes, except I don't talk like that. I do kind of put my little influencer hat on and try to explain what I'm talking about for those who may not know. As per usual, let's dive into the description. This is the Spotify bio. I think it's also on Sedona's website. So Sedona's sound emerges from the nostalgic undertow of hook-filled pop antics. Conjuring up female leads like Stevie Nicks and Madonna, Sedona aims to fuse past hurts with a contemporary feel. Founded by lead singer Rachel Stewart, the project has evolved into an amoeba of many creative minds, with Marilyn Chang on keys, Claire Gilb on guitar, Margot Bouchengees on bass, and Tia Sestaro on drums. Camaraderie is at the heart of all things Sedona. The five-piece comes together to celebrate ruminations of the heart with all its pain and all its glory. So I'll just lead with, I really loved this album. I'm so thrilled I gave it a listen. I'm so excited I found it. And my big takeaway is I'm ready to lock in and follow all of these people throughout their music careers. A lot of really cool stuff is going on. I'll get more into that later. my usual preface that I am not perfect. I am probably saying a lot of names wrong and talking about music incorrectly. At the end of the day, the point of New Music Fridays is just to have fun, share new music, and more often than not, I'm talking about it because I'm geeking out about it, not because I think I'm an authority on absolutely anything at all. So come for the vibes, stay for the music. Or come for the music, stay for the vibes. Whichever you find accurate and appropriate to your feelings, that's what we're doing here. Let's dive into the album. Head First is the name of the first track, and I think that's a great... Are we all in agreement that that's a great name for a first track on an album? I really liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. Tone switch from out-of-tune pizzicato at the front to a crispier electric guitar sound happens around 30 seconds in. Vocalizations don't start until about 45 seconds in, which I'm saying just like regardless of anyone involved in the band and how they may identify, this is like cool girl music. Not starting in with vocals until 45 seconds in is so cool girl. And I'm saying cool girl not as like a genuine thing. I'm saying it as like a state of mind. You know what I mean? I loved it. And then I also wrote this down. I don't know. I do this thing where I will compare things to other things, and I'm not the authority on either thing that I am talking about and comparing. But Kalani has a song called Honey that I listen to a lot, have listened to a lot since high school. And there are moments where I felt like the vocals were kind of... What I must be trying to say is jazzier, more R&B, sultry. But it had kind of... I was giving Kalani in a few moments in this first song. Now that I've listened to the full album, I don't know how accurate that was even almost, but that is a note that I put head first as I was diving into the album. Track 2, the song Underneath. This I wrote is immediately more my vibe. I really enjoyed Head First, but I don't know. Sometimes you get some crisp guitar and you just know that the song is going to be added to your liked songs and on shuffle for the rest of your life probably. Just in the background for the vibes, you know. I have a big, long, strong, liked songs playlist on Spotify, 2,535, which was honestly a little sparser than I was expecting. But my favorite thing to do is just shuffle it and see what the universe serves up to me. And when a song starts and it sounds like Underneath does, track 2, I usually know that, okay, this is going to come on shuffle. I'm going to listen to it all the way through, and this is just going to become sort of a part of the soundtrack of my life. So 40 seconds in, I saved the song. The way the music picks up there, I wrote. And then, yes, okay, so I wrote down some lyrics, less so because the lyricism was doing anything for me, more so because the shift in vibe and rhythm in those moments is so phenomenal to me. Not knocking the lyrics at all. I'm just, usually when I write down the lyrics, it's because I'm going to stare blankly at the camera and go, are you kidding me about the lyricism? I want to, on the record as we're going in, so you know what to expect. These lyrics, as you listen to them, listen to the music behind them too, figure out what they're doing, because I think it's so interesting and it was so phenomenal to me. So means so much but does so little for me to There You Go Again. That shift in vibe scratched some sort of itch in my brain. So good. Moving on forward, track 3, I loved this song. This was probably one of my most enthusiastic Save Immediately songs. I don't have a lot of notes for it because I spent a lot of the time trying to figure out if Sedona was signed to Saddest Factory Records. If you're unfamiliar, Saddest Factory Records is the record label Phoebe Bridgers founded, and this song has a Claude feature. I am familiar that Claude is indeed or was signed to Saddest Factory Records, and so for a second there I was almost proud of myself, thinking, oh, did I accidentally find one of the Saddest Factory artists without realizing? And that is not the case. I don't think Sedona is signed. I don't know that Sedona is affiliated with a record label, to be honest. I really did my best to figure that out. I'm very open to my best not being good enough in that regard, but I did my digging. So I spent a lot of time while listening to She's So Pretty doing research. So I don't have many notes, but I have phenomenal car vibes written down. Loved the Claude feature. Really pretty vocals on this song. And I wrote shoegaze ? Shoegaze is one of those genres that people throw around, and usually the people throwing around that label have ripped jeans and really cool vibes, and often glasses just like mine. I'm a tryhard. I want to be just like them. Part of being just like them is understanding what shoegaze means, and I cannot promise you with 100% confidence that I do know what it means. But I do think, from my brief dalliance with YouTube example videos, that shoegaze does fit the vibe of this song. And overall, I think this record. So take with that what you will. Moving on, Best Kept Secret is track number 4. And time to lock in, because I have a lot of notes for this song. Immediately I wrote, I can hear the microphone, or the artist proximity to the microphone. All in all, I think it's ultimately the settings, the way the equalizer settings are set, makes the microphone more noticeable. And so the effect of that is it feels like a live performance almost. And I think this is like one of my favorite things when it's done right on a track. And this feels right. What it does is I feel like it places me in the world. It separates out the music sometimes in a really interesting way. I have on one of the tracks to come a note more about like how changing the equalizer and drawing attention to the microphone impacts the world building. We'll get into that later. This particular track reminded me a lot of that episode of Gilmore Girls where Lorelai Gilmore is at karaoke, and it like is the talk of the town because she sings "And I Will Always Love You" by, there's no "and" in that title, huh? "I Will Always Love You" from Whitney Houston, and everyone's like, oh my god, she still loves Luke. Such a good episode. But the vibe of that like small town bar doing karaoke, and Lorelai Gilmore in her like little V-neck blouse and her tailored pants. I don't know, something about that Best Kept Secret. That's the vibe. Subtle horns / woodwinds, which I later think I discovered is probably the Korg. Am I saying that right? If you're a Star Wars fan, I'm not saying Porg, I'm saying Korg, which is, from my understanding, a keyboard synthesizer instrument. Back in the day, I was a DJ at a jazz radio station, and I will never forget my first back cell I had to read on air where the instrument listed was Korg, because I was in a pinch. It was happening very, very fast, and I had to say it on live broadcast. And I did do the necessary digging afterwards. So always a joy to see things I've learned from the past coming in handy. I think based on the band outfit that more often than not, if we're hearing like horns or woodwinds, that it may be the Korg. So, and then 2 minutes in is the timestamp. I have written down that the music bed is so rich. Next is Every Once in a While, track 5. This song could go on a soundtrack of a film from the 90s or the early 2000s, I've written down, or it almost would like fit in on Guitar Hero or a Disney Channel original movie from what I would call the golden era, which is like Stuck in the Suburbs, like the Jesse McCartney era, very, very early Y2K. I don't know if that is necessarily proof that I know much about that era of music or aesthetic, so much as it is just that I feel like the world building going on here fits with that like nostalgic, crackly, homey evening. I don't know why that era of time is the evening of life to me a little bit, and it doesn't make sense because here we are further down the line and it feels way more daytime in my mind none of this makes sense. But if you're thinking about, if I'm making assignments, like vibe wise, metaphysically speaking, hey, who knows what I'm saying? I don't. But it makes a lot of sense in my head. I feel like that's like the evening of time where it's almost like Halloween night where it's just starting to get a little bit dark. Does that make, hey, I'm going to stop while I'm behind. But yeah, there's just like a lot of, I felt like I was in a world with Every Once in a While. And to me, that song just really does belong on like a movie soundtrack. Okay. Track 6, The Culprit. Immediate save for the guitar. Layered guitar styles and sound. If a song has a bass or a guitar scaling in the back as a layer, rest assured I'm going to save it. Violin strings on this are so pretty. Once again, I think that may be the Korg. And then I wrote such great filling out of the song sonically. Once again, another disclaimer. Every time I use the word sonically, I feel like I do have to remind you all, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't think I know what I'm talking about. I'm here for the vibes and vibes alone. Absolutely, I'm probably throwing in words that are to make me sound a little bit cooler. And hey, if it's not working, it's not working, and that's fine by me. Baby Run, track 7, 2 asterisks on this track because I loved it. Total vibe shift on this one. I wrote down video game music because I think there's some production elements at the top of that song that are kind of techno-y and cool. Cool girl vocals, again, I said, wow, I love this one. Really listen to the lyrics and vocals on this. And then around 3 minutes in, it strips down. So great. And I have written Sedona is a star, which is fun because in a lot of the little album write-ups and artist write-ups I've read, Sedona was very much made to be a star. It is a musical project with that in mind, kind of, it seems like. And so, man, I just totally get that. Baby Run, I think, now that I've made it through the whole album, is probably my favorite song from the album. Really, really good. I loved it. Moving on, this is track 8 of 11. Just a little reminder on the runtime for you again. Knock on Wood. I have loved the vocals in this written down. It's raspier, breathier. We have a jazzier piano into synth. 1 minute. Yeah, okay, 1 minute in, timestamp. I wrote, this is very like Time After Time vibes. Is that Pat Benatar? I don't know. But Time After Time vibes, think that. About 10 seconds from the end, we have, about 10 seconds from the end, we have about 10 seconds of ambient sounds mixed with music and techno sounds of the episode where SpongeBob goes to the future, and like we have like weird techno sounds. There's a little bit of those production elements in this at the end, mixed in with like nature sounds. I liked it. I really like it. And then I just made a general note. Sometimes lyrics really help tell a story and build out a world. Other times it's the music that really clarifies an image and sets a scene. Usually, like, I am a lyric girl. And absolutely, like, there's good I feel like I keep not talking about the lyricism on this album, and it's because that wasn't necessarily the first thing I noticed, and that's not to say that they're not super strong and great and well written. What it is to say is that they're not on Genius, so I didn't get to sit and follow along with them and really take them in as much, but also the big world being built by the sounds of the album was just so rich that I got to fall into that way more, and I really loved it. Other times it's the music that really clarifies an image, sets a scene. Usually I try to diagnose that music as super soundtracky. That's how I describe a lot of this album. It's sonically rich. I enjoyed spending time in the scenes these songs set, and I plan to listen and visit them again. So yeah, I feel like most of these songs really could fit into the soundtrack of some sort of show or film. And I do generally feel like when we get into Madonna and Stevie Nicks, I do feel like that era of music, that era of film and television is where I do see this being kind of an appropriate soundtracky sort of music. When an old flame flickers, once again, we've got 2 asterisks. That means I saved it pretty quick. This is a softer and more stripped down song. Vocals and lyrics are at the forefront. We've got soft, warm guitar. And then timestamped 1:17, it all like falls out, and it's very dramatically beautiful. I love it when music does that, where everything falls away and sort of showcases one element of the song more than another. Because it's always, of course, intentional, and I find most often that if that choice is being made, it is a strong choice, and I always like it. Track 10, Deja Vu. I have asterisk immediate save. That usually means for me. Synth, within parentheses, Korg, really putting that word to use. Or electric guitar riff. Couldn't tell which one it was, actually. If it's like sort of a, see, like, I don't know, gruffer electric guitar chipping away at the song, breathier soprano, fantasy harp, damp crescendo. Once again, I'm like just trying to like actually jot down everything I think I'm hearing, trying to use words that feel like they describe what I'm talking about, but not knowing if they're exactly the right words. And then woodwinds, question mark, which again, maybe the Korg. And just I have written beautiful, period. 156, it starts building back up and filling back out musically. And I have written, it was in this moment that I remembered the album is called Getting Into Heaven. All of the fantasy elements production wise, so like the techno-y fantasy, like the harp, or what did I call it? Damp crescendo. They really fit the getting into heaven type thing. And then I also wrote, this is San Junipero Heaven. If you know Black Mirror, the episode that's super duper 80s-y, retro, heaven vibes, that's, I feel like it fits this album. I feel like this album is a bit shoegazier though. See what I did there? Track 11, this is the album closer, the song Kissing Spree, and I wrote Dark Water Song. I have this sort of dumb language I have built with myself, and it is kind of the way that I describe the tone of certain songs, and Dark Water is, for whatever reason, one of those little shortcuts for me. There are some songs on Taylor Swift's Reputation that I feel like are very dark, watery songs. There's a song called Lulu from Albin Lee Meldau, if that's how you say it. So sorry. Shout out. I've been listening to that song since high school, and I really like it. But if you're looking for an example of what I mean, that is kind of what I mean by dark water songs. Usually they're moodier. There's like guitar with a fair amount of diffusion going on. There's some sort of loop pedal maybe being utilized. Like Nighttime Pool, Dark Water. That's what I'm getting at. I don't know. Usually it's when there's an active bass too. I have written, okay, ambient sounds, vocal sits on top. Here we go. Okay. The vocals sit on top to make the two feel disconnected. So the vocals and the music bed or whatever ambient sounds are going on. And it makes them feel sort of disconnected, like one is layered on top of the other, which then makes everything in between to me feel like void space. And that to me feels very album appropriate when you think about the song, or you think about the album being called Getting Into Heaven, but having sort of hook-filled pop antics, Stevie Nicks, Madonna, right? Like that all just fits. I don't know. Strings, Korg, question mark, at 250, echoey harmonies. And then I have, it's either a bass or a lower and duller guitar riff. I love it. Those are my main notes for the album closer. The album as a whole, my key takeaways, I said I'm pretty locked in and ready to start following everyone involved in this record or project top to bottom. I love the album art. I feel like as a designer, I always, that's so annoying. I don't know, as a designer, as someone who really loves graphic design and does graphic design for work, and that is part of what I really enjoy working on. I love a good album aesthetic. If the album art and the photography on the album, the creative direction for the project is just cool, or I like it. I don't know, that stands out to me, and usually I look up the people involved and start following them, because I don't know, it's super inspiring to me. I think it's really cool. So that is how I felt about basically this whole album. I loved the sounds. It's unique, the aesthetic of it. I'm all in on Sedona as a pop lead, or as what did we call it? Hair salon pop, myth rock lead. Just super cool project. I'm obviously gonna have to go back and do my homework, listen to previous albums. I'll give you a little rundown of that because I'm interested, and I feel like if I were watching this live stream and someone else were doing this, I would want to know. Okay, so this is the sophomore album from Sedona. First album came out in 2020, and it is a 7-song, 23-minute runtime album, about 24. It was 23 minutes, 46 seconds. And the album is called Rear View Angel. Off the top, judging the books by the covers, the aesthetic of the two album arts are pretty different. But the singles and EPs, we have really cool aesthetics and visuals, really cool visuals across the board. I really like the aesthetic of this project. So yeah, go give it a listen if you haven't already. Recommend it to your friends. Maybe recommend this live stream to your friends. Every Friday we listen to new music. I will hunt it down for y'all, and we will all have a good time together. That's a promise. Have a great rest of your Friday. I will see you again Tuesday. We have a long weekend, so once again, this is Driven Catalyst, and